A signature on page 9 of a contract he did not read, at a training school that cost him nothing up front. He was 22. What he had actually signed was 14 months of owing a company between $5,000 and $8,000 if he left. 9 years later, the same man brings in $200,000 a year with his name on the door of the truck. He keeps about 90 of it. Nobody explains that gap at the recruiting table, and it is not even the strangest thing about how this trade pays. We will get to that first. Most people think trucking pays by the hour or by the load. It pays by the mile, and that one detail rewrites the entire job. You are paid for distance covered, not time spent. Traffic costs you money. A closed dock costs you money. A snowstorm costs you money. A 4-hour wait at a warehouse costs you money. None of that is your fault, and all of it comes out of your income. It goes further, because there is more than one kind of mile. Practical miles are what you actually drive. Short miles, sometimes called household goods miles, are what a mapping standard says the trip should have taken, and they are always fewer. A carrier paying 60 cents on short miles can pay less than a carrier offering 55 cents on practical miles, and across a year the difference is thousands of dollars. Then there is everything you are not paid for at all: fueling, pre-trip inspection, waiting at a shipper, and sitting in a closure are unpaid unless your contract specifically says otherwise. A driver logging 70 hours in a week may be paid for 40 of them. Once you accept that the pay is measured in the one thing you cannot control, every strange thing about this industry starts making sense, including why drivers drive tired. Let's start at the bottom. The student earns nothing, or a small stipend of $500 to $600 a week if the training is company-sponsored. Most are 21 to 35, and this trade takes people starting over at 50 far more readily than most. You spend 3 to 7 weeks learning to handle 70,000 pounds of articulated vehicle, and the hardest part is not the driving, it is backing. Reversing a trailer into a dock between two other trailers with a foot of clearance is the skill that separates people, and it is counterintuitive, because the trailer goes the opposite way to the wheel. After school, you spend 4 to 8 weeks with a trainer in the passenger seat, and often you sleep in the same truck. Getting in requires being 21 for interstate work, a clean enough driving record, a medical certificate, and passing the commercial license exam. Here is what nobody tells you. Company-sponsored training is a loan even when nobody calls it one. If you leave before the contract period ends, you owe the balance, and that debt is why a large number of first-year drivers stay at a company they should leave. The first-year company driver earns $54,000 to $62,000. Most are 22 to 30. You are running long haul, meaning you live in the truck, and you are home 2 days out of every 14 if the schedule holds. You sleep in a bunk behind the seats in a parking lot, and finding that parking lot is a real daily problem, because there are far fewer legal truck parking spaces in America than there are trucks that need them. You will spend evenings driving past full lots while your legal driving hours run out. You eat badly, you sit for 11 hours, and your body notices within months. Getting here requires holding the license and being hired, which at the large carriers is close to automatic because they are always short. Turnover in the first year at the large long-haul carriers is famously extreme. Here is what nobody tells you. The first year is priced as an apprenticeship without being called one. Carriers accept that most new drivers leave, because a driver with 12 months of verifiable experience becomes insurable elsewhere, and until then you are cheap. The experienced driver earns $72,000 to $88,000. Most are 25 to 40. After a year you are insurable, and that changes everything, because now you can choose. You can move to a dedicated route running the same lane every week and be home most weekends. You can move regional and be home nightly for less money. You can stay long haul and chase miles. The trade calls this the first real fork, and drivers who understand it move deliberately, while drivers who do not stay wherever they were hired. Getting here requires 12 verifiable months and a clean record. Attrition drops sharply at this rung. Here is what nobody tells you. Home time and money are directly convertible. And every driver is making that trade, whether or not they realize it. Two drivers earning $80,000 can have completely different lives, and the one who negotiated for a dedicated lane took a pay cut on paper that he did not actually feel. There is a piece of law that governs every hour of this trade. Federal hours of service rules limit a driver to 11 hours of driving inside a 14-hour on-duty window, after 10 consecutive hours off. Once the 14-hour clock starts, it does not stop, which is the part people miss. A 4-hour wait at a shipper does not pause it, it burns it. A driver who arrives at a warehouse at 6 in the morning and is not loaded until 10 has lost 4 hours of earning capacity that nobody will pay him for, and he still has to be parked by 8 that night. Since 2017, this has been tracked by an electronic logging device wired into the engine, which ended the older practice of keeping a second paper logbook. The device made the industry safer, and it also made the unpaid waiting impossible to hide. The specialist earns $95,000 to $125,000. Most are 30 to 50. You move something ordinary drivers are not qualified to move. Tanker work carries liquid that shifts, which changes how the vehicle behaves in every turn and every stop, and surge on a partially filled tank has put experienced drivers on their side. Flatbed means you secure the load yourself, in weather, with chains and straps and tarps, and you are legally responsible if it moves. Hazardous materials require an endorsement, background clearance, and a level of paperwork discipline that is itself the job. Getting here requires endorsements, a clean record, and usually 2 to 5 years. Here is what nobody tells you. Specialist work pays more because fewer drivers will do it, not because it is harder to drive. Flatbed pays a premium largely because a lot of drivers will not climb on a load in the rain at 5 in the morning, and that is the entire mechanism. There is one more thing to explain before the top of this ladder. Freight is priced on a spot market. When a shipper needs a load moved and has no contract carrier available, the load goes onto a board where carriers bid, and the rate moves with supply and demand in that specific lane on that specific day. A load out of a busy port might pay well. The load back out of wherever it took you might pay nothing, because everyone is trying to leave that place, and nobody is trying to go there. Truckers call that a deadhead, running empty because there was nothing worth taking, and every empty mile is fuel and tires and hours with no revenue at all. The skill of an owner-operator is therefore not driving, it is refusing loads. A driver who accepts a decent rate into a region with no freight coming out has just lost money on a load that looked profitable. Company drivers never see any of this, because dispatch absorbs it, which is exactly why so many good company drivers become bad owner-operators. The owner-operator earns $180,000 to $220,000 a year before costs, and nets between $70,000 and $110,000. Most are 35 and up. You own the truck. You are a business now, and the larger number is the one that appears in recruitment advertising, while the smaller one is the number you live on. Out of that revenue comes fuel, which is the largest single cost, and which moves with a market you do not control. Then the truck payment, insurance, permits, tires, and maintenance is not a monthly cost. It is nothing for 8 months, and then $11,000 in one afternoon when a transmission goes. Getting here requires capital, credit, and an operating authority or a lease with a carrier. Here is what nobody tells you. The failure mode is almost never bad driving. It is cash flow. A driver who does not set money aside for the truck's inevitable large repair is one breakdown from losing the business, and a meaningful share of owner-operators quit and return to company driving within 3 years, usually after exactly that. On the 7th of June, 2014, just before 1 in the morning, a truck on the New Jersey Turnpike near Cranberry came into a construction zone at 65 miles an hour, where the limit was 45. Traffic ahead had slowed to under 10. The driver, Kevin Roper, 35, did not brake in time and hit the back of a limousine van. A passenger named James McNair was killed, and 4 others were seriously injured. Federal investigators found that Roper had been awake for more than 28 consecutive hours. He had driven roughly 800 miles in his own car, 12 hours, from his home in Georgia to his terminal in Delaware, and then started a 14-hour shift. The crash happened in the 13th hour of it. He had not broken the hours of service rules, because the rules do not count the drive to work. The fleet owner earns $150,000 to $300,000 a year, with 3 to 10 trucks running. Most are 40 and up. You stop driving. You dispatch. You find freight. You handle compliance. And you manage drivers, which is the part that surprises everybody. Because drivers are hard to keep, and the good ones have options. Your income is now the margin between what shippers pay and what it costs you to move it, and that margin is thin and cyclical. Getting here requires capital, credit, an operating authority, and surviving a freight cycle, which swings hard every 2 to 4 years. Here is what nobody tells you. Small fleets fail in bad markets, and they also fail in good ones, because a boom tempts you to add trucks with debt right before rates fall. The owners who survive multiple cycles are usually the ones who grew slower than they could have. There is a path off this ladder that a large share of the trade eventually takes. Local and regional driving, dedicated routes, and vocational work like refuse, concrete, and utilities pay $65,000 to $95,000 and put you at home every night. Driver training, safety management, and dispatch pay similarly. Almost everyone leaves long haul eventually. Drivers who plan the exit land somewhere good, and drivers who do not tend to stay out there 5 years longer than they meant to. Student, nothing to $26,000 while training. First-year driver, $62,000. Experienced driver, $88,000. Specialist, $125,000. Owner-operator, $200,000 before costs, and around $90,000 after. Fleet owner, $300,000 in a good year. First-year turnover at the large long-haul carriers is among the highest in any American industry. The pay is measured in miles, which is the one thing you do not control. And a man who had broken no rule at all was awake for 28 hours before he hit that van. Next, every level of an underground miner.